Steppenwolf, Born to be Wild. Marna Deitch, that's the song I picked for you, because I think when you came out back in the 70s, when I came out back in the 70s, that was it. Born to be Wild, baby.
That was it, yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hi, John.
What year did you come out?
Well, it depends on your definition of come out.
Okay.
But I guess officially it would be 1979.
79.
Yeah.
I came out, 79. I was sort of, fiddling around before that, but officially told myself it was 79.
Well, we tend to use that phrase like it's one specific thing coming out, and it isn't. You have to come out first to yourself before you can come out to other people, and that's a whole process also.
A whole process. I did the whole born-again Christian thing and tried Jesus and guitar music, and that didn't stick, and then, tried dating girls, and that was over by 9 o'clock with, nobody having a good time, and so eventually I found my way to Studio One, but that's another story. 79, where were you?
I was in college in upstate New York, State University in New York, Oswego.
Wow.
And actually the first one in my family that I came out to was my brother, who had just graduated from Binghamton, was down in Washington, D.C. For his grad studies. But he came up for my graduation, and we decided to take some time alone together from our folks, because both of our parents were ill, and subsequently they both died the following year. But we were talking to each other about how our parents' illnesses were affecting us. And my brother started avoiding a topic, and it sounded like a very familiar avoidance. And I said, Phil, tell me everything. And he got very dramatic. He said, you don't want to know everything. At which point I knew, and I said, tell me everything. He said,
just on that, I know he's coming out. He sounds like a gay dramatic moment.
Exactly.
I'm gay.
He said, I'm gay. I finally fell in love. And his name is also Philip. And I cracked up laughing. He was so hurt that I was laughing. And I said, you and I go through the same experiences at the same time. And her name's Luann.
Touche. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what was your first introduction then to finding community? Was it a center? Was it a lesbian coffee house? How did you
I think I was luckier than most, because I was I was a psych major, but I was a theater minor. And I discovered theater back in junior high school. And my high school actually had a very professional theater department. Many of our graduates are actually well known in the industry now. So I think I had an introduction to community before many others did. So for me, coming out was just, what's the address of the bar?
Well, that's for me too. The bars and the baths. The bars and the baths were where I found community initially.
Well, for men, you had that other option. For women, we didn't. It was the bars or the bookstores.
Oh, yes, of course, with all the lesbian fiction and lesbian books. And
exactly.
Well of Loneliness and Chris Williamson and lesbian music festivals. And, with Robin Tyler and all that time.
Oh, yes. I love the music festival that Robin organized back then.
And then you left New York and you came to Los Angeles?
I came out in New York. I lived in New York through the early 80s. I moved here 85, the very end of 85.
Okay.
So the city of West Hollywood had just become a city.
November 84. So.
In fact, we're coming up on our 35th anniversary next month.
I know. I cannot
November
believe
29th.
it.
Yes.
And I've been there for 30 of the 35 years. You've been there since the beginning.
I've been there since just after.
Wow.
1 year shy.
Wow.
I was watching the news of it at home in my apartment in New York. And at the time in New York City, my folks had just passed away 5 years ago, and I was a New York stage actor. So right after my parents died, all of a sudden, I was losing all of my friends.
Same here.
And I lost friends to a disease called GRID, which a lot of our listeners need to be educated on that's what we called it before it was AIDS.
Gay-related immune deficiency. GRID. Yeah.
And then it became AIDS. So I was so heartbroken. And then the final straw was one friend of mine. When I disappeared, he was missing for 6 weeks. I was put in charge of the civilian hunt. And when he finally floated in the Hudson River 6 weeks later, I said, that's it. I have to leave New York. Every street was a memory. So I saw the news about this becoming a city and made the decision.
We both got a similar clarion call. I was living in Laguna Beach when the city was incorporated. Very happy homo in Laguna Beach, and I met John Heilman and Steve Schulte, two of the original council members.
Yeah.
But I was going through, like you described it, just so many hundreds of guys in Laguna all dying at the same time. And I just couldn't take it anymore. And, I was telling Steve Schulte, okay, you guys need to run for higher office and you need to run. And he's like, because I was a little twink, with an attitude. He's like, John Duran, you got so many opinions. Why don't you just move to West Hollywood and come help us? And I said, all right, I will. And off I went. I moved to West Hollywood in 90. 90 is when I got there. So you've been part of the Dykes on Bikes for how long?
Well,
my favorite part of the parade, by the way. My favorite part of the parade.
I hear that from most people. I love it. Actually, that story that I just told was the start of my motorcycle life. When my friend did float in the Hudson River, his lover of 6 years, who was actually my date to my high school prom, George, said, "You're moving to California, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm out of here." And he said, "Can I go with you?" And I said, "George, I'd love it." And he said, "How'd you like to go by motorcycle?"
What?
And I said, "You're crazy.
Yeah.
Neither one of us have even been a passenger on a bike." And he said, "I know." I said, "Let's do it."
New York to L.A. on the back of a motorcycle?
Not on the back. Oh, no.
Oh, no. I was talking about George. I was talking about George. I thought George might have a cheetah scarf on his neck on the
Good
back.
save, John. Good save. Well, we both took a few lessons. We both luckily passed our tests, and we left New York. And my first year, I rode back and forth from New York to California 3 times.
Wow.
So at that time, it was 1985, being a woman on a motorcycle was still so rare.
Right.
And being a woman who went cross-country. Now, George, halfway through the first trip, it wasn't for him. He stopped, so I went on alone. What we didn't know is that George had HIV, yes,
also.
And AIDS, and we lost him a few years later.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
So...
Wow. So let me think. So Christopher Street West started in 1970.
Yes.
So this was about, I guess 15 years into, were the Dykes on Bikes a part of the parade at this point? Or
I remember when I first came to West Hollywood, the Dykes on Bikes, which also your listeners need to know, is actually a trademark name.
Okay.
And it's owned by pretty much the San Francisco group.
Okay.
And they have chapters around. It was... Sonny Wolf, who went to the Supreme Court to earn the trademark, has always allowed me to use the name as I needed, but I never actually started a chapter here. And I'll go into that in a second. But I remember when I first came here, I didn't really ride with them. And the motorcyclists were in the middle of the parade.
Bad idea.
Horrible idea.
Yeah.
And
they need lots of room, lots of geography in order to stay up. Yeah.
We need the room in order to control our clutch hand so that we don't hit anyone.
Right.
And that's exactly what happened. I think one of the motorcyclists got out of control. They hit the float in front of them, which...
Down went go-go boys everywhere.
Well, it was that would have been a bowling alley. But if I'm right... They hit the Reverend Troy Perry's float.
Troy. That's awesome.
Yeah, I need to verify that. I need to verify that it was his.
I'll have to ask Troy next. He comes on the show from time to time. I'll have to ask him. Yeah. It
was either him or Morris, but Morris Kite.
Yeah.
And because of that, we were kicked out of the parade for quite a few years. And in I can't remember if it was 93, 94, Vivian Escalante and I fought the Pride Parade people to allow us to come back and ride in the front.
Wow. Let me think. Would that have been Rodney Scott? No, it was before Rodney Scott.
I think it was just
Joe
before
Toy,
Rodney.
Or I used to know all the presidents. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
I'll remember later tonight and I'll text you, whatever it was. So that's when the Dykes on Bikes got back.
That's when we moved to the front, yeah. And
moved to the front.
And came back.
And came back. Wow.
Yeah.
Now, I know the guys have the Seder Club, I think is the guys on motorcycles. But there's something about having women on these big, powerful, loud engines revving up the beginning. It's just the parade is happening. It's electrifying.
It is.
It's electrifying.
I think because it goes against, this is odd to say, it goes against type if you think of motorcyclists. But if you think of the gay community, it's actually a cliche.
Yeah. Although I don't know a lot of gay men who are really skilled at riding a motorcycle. Back of the motorcycle, yes. I have been on the back. I've held on for dear life, holding on to the back of that motorcycle seat. But that's amazing. Wow. And I know there was a controversy, I guess, was it a couple of years ago? You and I were involved because another group wanted to take the front of the parade, and I remember this compromise was they got to go first, and then we let them get out of the way, and then the Dykes on Bikes started the parade.
And Actually, that's a very good point to bring up if I have time to talk about it
In
before
about
the break.
20 seconds, and then we're going to go to break. So you want to hold it till we get back?
I want to hold it, yeah.
Hold it till we get back. We'll talk about Dykes on Bikes when we come back. Thanks for tuning in here on Sidebar with John Duran on Channel Q. Chris Williamson's sister. I picked that song for you too, Marna. I picked that song for you. I love Chris Williamson. Marna Deitch, lesbian activist, 40 years in the LGBT community. That's who we're talking with. You can find her on Twitter at Marna Deitch, correct? I found you on Twitter.
Yeah,
okay.
I need to use my Twitter account more, actually.
Yeah, you should use it every now and then. Yeah. We were just talking about the Dykes on Bikes being and their position in the first in the parade.
Well, first I want to say that I don't go anymore by Dykes on Bikes for LA because, as I said, it's a trademark name. But back when I was one of the organizers for the Resist March, I felt if we're fighting for equal rights, I don't want us to separate anymore the motorcyclists, women and men. We're fighting for everyone. So I've changed us to the Motorcycle Contingent for Equality.
Oh, look at that.
And that's actually how ABC announced us last year for the Pride Parade.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So that's the name I go by now in LA.
Very, very cool. I didn't get to watch the coverage of ABC. It was the first national broadcast I know of an LGBT parade, and then they did them all over the country.
Yeah.
And I was so worried that the commentators weren't going to catch the nuances or the detail.
Well,
and I didn't get to watch it after. But
I did work with the ABC crew directly, and they were wonderful to work with. I will say that at the parade, they might have announced us not quite the way that I wanted.
Yeah,
and I wanted
that's
to clarify
what I was worried
that.
about.
Yeah, I wanted to say what I wanted them to realize is that even though we do seem to have one political direction, it appears, we're not. We're a representation of everyone in the country. So what I'm saying is that the Motorcycle Contingent for Equality, we're not red, we're not blue, we're red, white, and blue. I got that from Brian Pendleton during the Resist March.
I love Brian Pendleton.
Yes.
He's awesome. I got to get him on the show.
Oh, he's wonderful.
He's a wonderful guy. Yeah.
But if you come against the rights of one of us, you come against us all.
Right.
So basically I was saying we're not Democrats, we're not Republicans, and that's what I wrote. And they kind of hit the word Republicans very strong. So it made it sound like we're Republican. So I wanted to clarify that.
That's a minority within the minority.
Yes. Now, if you are out there, motorcyclists that want to support us for Gay Pride, you can find us on Facebook at Motorcycle Contingent for Equality.
There you go, MCE.
MCE. Oh, good, yeah.
See, if a gay man had done it, we would have made the acronym spell something. Lesbians are just very practical. MCE. I love that. You've got 40 years of doing stuff. I know the city of West Hollywood gave you the Melissa Etheridge Award, right? 2019. Nice. That was nice, recognizing your 40 years. But I remember you when I used to eat at the Greenery, when the bars would close down, and I would go for food at the Greenery, which is now long gone.
Oh, you do remember me for that.
And you were working at the Greenery back then.
I was actually the first woman that they ever hired.
Wow.
Because it was a very strong gay men's diner.
Yeah.
All I knew, it was a 24/7 diner. And I came from New York City working 24/7 diners, the Empire Diner, which was very popular in New York. Yeah. And they wouldn't hire me. I'm like, but I really want a job here. I'm sorry, we're not hiring you. So I just kept on going back. And I think I finally just wore them down.
Which is so great. I'm participating. They're making a documentary of the history of Studio One next week.
Oh, wow.
And, there's a lot of history there because we were, as a community, lesbians and gay men were finally starting to find each other and make linkages. Yeah. And, there had been policy, no girls allowed in all boys space and no boys allowed in all women's space. I mean, and there was a lot of separatism, not to mention race and class. We were just not crossing over each other. New York, at least you have a subway. Everyone's got to get on the subway. In L.A.
But New York was segregated also. There was the men's bars that the women were not allowed in. When my friend disappeared and I had to search for him, they actually let me in. And I felt like I was in this private club.
Wow.
But there was pretty much a reason for that. Times have changed. Yeah. But at the time, because it was so difficult for us to find our community and find our love, to have it separate was sort of needed. Now, and especially for women, because a friend of mine worded it well. He said, a gay woman in a straight men's bar, a gay woman in a gay men's bar, well, any woman in a gay men's bar, at the worst is an annoyance. A straight man in a gay woman's bar, at the worst is a physical threat.
Oh,
so
wow.
at the time, we needed our separate.
Yeah.
But as times changed and laws changed, we had to adapt with it.
Yep.
And the studio was very slow in adapting. I remember that.
Part of that was the owner, Scott Forbes, was very much in the old school. But when he passed, I mean, studio didn't make it much beyond that. But it was a place to look for sax.
Yeah.
And so that's really what it was about. So having women there was kind of like, oh, now we got to act.
An annoyance.
Now we got to act dignified. Now we got to keep all our clothes on.
Yeah.
There's women here. It has changed.
It has.
I mean, I walk down Santa Monica Boulevard today.
Everything is mixed.
LGBT people are just mixed in with their straight friends.
They are.
You know,
they are. And it is wonderful.
That is what we fought for. That's what we fought for.
We fought for it, and at the same time, now we're losing something because of it.
Yep.
And I think one of the biggest things we're losing is when things happen and we need to find each other to protest or to even just support each other, we don't have it anymore.
Yeah.
We used to just run to the bars, like when Harvey Milk, and bless his heart, I think it was Harvey Milk that actually was the one who said, we need to make Castro the center. When things happen, tell people to meet at the Castro.
Right. Well, we made it the corner of Santa Monica, San Vicente.
Exactly.
Whenever something happens, go to that corner.
Yeah, and New York had Christopher Street.
Of course.
We still have the Santa Monica strip, but it's not the same. It's not like one central place for us to get our information. Right. And I think that's one of the hardest things that all organizations right now are having, how to get the word out.
Yeah, I mean, looking at young people today, and there's a couple sitting in the room as we speak, it's all on their phones. I mean, it's all on the phone. It's all on social media. It's all on Twitter. It's all on Facebook. And I tell people, back in the old days, we used to have to print flyers and then go to the bars and hand them out. Like, it was so old school.
Yeah.
There was some
I'm thinking
fun
maybe
about
what
that.
we need to do is organize Cleve Jones for Harvey Milk actually had like a phone tree organized.
Yep.
And maybe we can do that again with text.
Yeah.
Like we text two people, they text two people. Maybe we can start getting the word out that way.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. I mean, the level of communication. Now, the good and the bad side is the internet and social media, while it has increased our communication, it's also increased the potential for false information to get out there. And I think there are right-wingers that sometimes try to pollute our rivers and streams. So. And so I'm always really hesitant.
Yeah.
There's an event tonight in West Hollywood. The Log Cabin Club is having George Papadopoulos, I can't even say his name. The guy who had to go to prison over Trump world. Thank you, Papadopoulos, as their speaker. So, of course, the LGBT community, the left, they're organizing a protest. And I'm watching both sides organize online. And I have no idea how many people are going to come.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't know. One of the things I get as city council in West Hollywood is, what are you going to do about all the straight people at the Abbey? What are you going to do about all the straight people in the gay bars? It's like, whoa, time out,
Yeah.
If you demand equality, you've got to extend it.
Accept it.
You've got to extend it.
Yeah.
You've got to treat people equally.
And then if you want your space, you have to make your space.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
so Little Frida's, remember Little Frida's, the lesbian coffee house on Santa Monica? So it went out of business.
Yes.
And I learned why, in part, is because lesbians would go in, they'd buy one cup of coffee, and they'd talk for 3 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the tables would never turn over.
Yeah. It wasn't so sustaining. In fact, we actually did throw a lot of fundraisers for it.
Oh, very cool.
I do want to, though, go back to one thing we were saying about the fact that when the motorcycles were behind in the parade, part of it was because the group that needed to get focused that year was the trans community, because so many of our trans brothers and sisters, and especially our trans women of color, are being murdered at an alarming rate.
Yes.
So we did put them up front. Now, I did have to hold the motorcycles back far because it was very dangerous to be behind that. But I want to make sure our listeners are aware of that problem.
In the last, half a minute we got left, optimism is your big thing.
I want to have a call. So many people have a call for action. I need us to have also a call for optimism, to remember that when we do continue to show up, we do eventually win. We might lose these little battles, but we will win the war as long as we don't say, oh, there's nothing I can do.
Right.
Keep showing up. It's a call for optimism.
You're absolutely right. And only because we have 4 decades, we know 2 steps forward, 3 back.
Exactly.
2 forward, sometimes 3 forward, 2 back.
It's like a spring.
Yeah.
Pull us back,
Yeah.
and we're going to zoom forward.
There you go, exactly. Marna Deitch, it was a pleasure having you on. Thank you for being part of our gathering of our history and history. I appreciate it. When we come back, we'll be hearing from Kyler O'Neill on the launching of her new book and her poetry here on Channel Q.